Fake or bootleg? Fun or not fun? How do you tell a bootleg? Well, I get this question a lot, and I don't always have the answer. I mean, sometimes it's pretty obvious and you can tell what product is a bootleg and which is not, but how do companies deal with this? Well, for this, I turned to a lawyer, and no, obviously, not this lawyer, and no, we're not any closer on that one. Third time's a charm. No, still not even close. There we go. All right. Greg Pan, a lawyer, and more importantly to all of us on the channel, a huge toy fan. And he's a toy lawyer. And he was kind enough to record a series of videos with me on bootlegs, the legality, what toy companies do about it, how they fight it, how they accept it, how they deal with it. So you've already probably seen part 1, and if not, there's a link right here above. And so Greg is going to explain a little bit more about bootlegging in part 2, and you'll see a quick shot of Tila, which for some reason I could not delete without deleting half the video.
Pretty, like many other counterfeit items, there's a risk to it. You can get shut down. China, I know there's a lot of discussion about the intellectual property protection, but they actually do spend a lot of money, time, and resources shutting down counterfeiters. It's not something they like either. It's just there's a lot of it out there. So things also get caught in customs as well. So there's a lot of risk to manufacturing unlicensed bootleg products. If you get caught, their fines are severe. So if you're doing it, they usually have contingencies in place. There's a lot of factories where they can change their brand, they can change their name, they can move their address. So ones who are usually making counterfeit toys or not kind of counterfeit products, they're not usually there to kind of stick around. They know the risks of the business. Going to more the collector-targeted bootlegs, they're very similar. The difference is they've done a little bit more market research and they're targeting a specific audience. So usually they know a toy line is popular. They've done their research. They know there's a market for it, and they're basically saying, I can copy that and sell it at a lower price, and I can make margin. So that's usually what they do. They'll find something out there that's popular, a brand name that's popular. They'll copy it, but they're going to cut corners as much as possible. As long as someone thinks they can buy it online and will spend money on it, that's all they're trying to do. They're just trying to get something that barely passes the bar as an action figure. So it's going to be much more lower quality. You can see them. The paintwork is not going to be there. The sculpting is not going to be there. Obviously, they're not paying a license fee or doing any product testing. So that's where the margin is going, and that's how they make money. The one-off kits, usually there's kind of a progression. There's people who make like custom action figures, but sometimes they sculpt a really good head on like an approved head for an action figure. People like it, and then they get into kind of molding or 3D printing, and they start making more of them and selling them as one-offs. Now, there's a scalability issue there. You can't make thousands of them, and the marketplace might be really, really small. So these are more kind of smaller, I call them like work out of the garage, and maybe they sell on Etsy, on eBay, and smaller places, but they're not going to be able to sell wholesale or mass scale. They don't have those capabilities typically. And historically, I don't really see them using mass scale factories overseas. It typically doesn't happen too often. For those one-off sellers, the money's it's at most a side hustle. There's no one's making big dollars selling one-off or 3D printed heads. It's a side hustle. So it's a smaller scale business, and I'll explain a little bit later why that matters. So the question I often get is, so why aren't people stocking them? And the answer kind of is they do. You don't always see what you don't see, which means that things get shut down, but you might not have ever known. Or You might have seen a counterfeit, but it might be gone in a month. There isn't someone kind of companies don't always have tons of resources where you can go after these things and find everything and take it down right away. They're human beings. They have to prioritize um, what to go after at each time. And there's a lot of diligence that you have to do. You have to kind of weigh your costs as well as investigate it properly and work with whatever system and process is in place to uh, get that counterfeit item removed, taken down, whatever. And if you do litigation is incredibly slow. So um, that's also another consideration. But things do get taken down pretty frequently. We just don't always see them because there's in the supply chain there's actually different points where you can have stuff taken down. So what are kind of the tools that you have to use? Because building an anti-piracy department is not cheap. You need to hire sometimes full-time staff, or using outside counsel, or using vendors. They need to be familiar with the tools. You need to have a budget if you're going to aggressively pursue people. You need to be savvy about the marketplace and just familiar with new marketplaces and um, place and where people start selling things. So 20 years ago it was all eBay. Maybe you'd find stuff on your local Craigslist or independent stores in various places. But as the world has opened up and there's been more e-commerce going on, you have many more websites like e-commerce and Tmall and Alibaba, and there's been a lot more kind of infrastructure built for marketplaces that can sell unauthorized items. So from a brand owner, they have to kind of figure out what's the best place to um, what's the best use of their resources, and there's a lot of things they consider. So one is they as I kind of mentioned before, there's a supply chain. Do you want to go after the manufacturers where where they are? The other place to stop things is with customs and border patrols in various countries. So a lot of organizations develop relationships with customs and border patrol, or the whatever the um, um, equivalent equivalent enforcement agency in different countries, and you basically educate them and say, hey, this is my brand, this is my style guide, this is what our products look like, these are the characters. So if you see Warner Brothers might say, if you see Batman, Bugs Bunny, Harry Potter, these are our characters, this is what the stuff looks like. If you see anything suspicious or you want to check with us, here's my email, here's my phone number, contact me if you see anything that looks off, and I'll verify. I'll look at the pictures and verify whether it's real or not. And if it's fake, seize those bad boys. So that's usually the relationship they develop with Customs and Border Patrol, or the equivalent agency. They'll let them know, they'll educate them, and then they're always looking out for counterfeit goods. They want to seize stuff. That's what they do. So that's one tool that they have at their disposal. And then us as consumers will never see it because it got stopped at the border, got stopped at the shipping docks. Um, the other companies spend a lot of resources. They'll find out where stuff is made, and then they'll do investigations and work with local authorities in the country of manufacture to get it shut down at that point. That's sometimes very expensive, but the alternative is trying to deal with the marketplace themselves. Once, the analogy I've often used, it's, once a product's out there, once there's a leak, once it's like peeing in a swimming pool, you can't get it out, and it's very hard to clean up. So once it's out in the market, we're talking about distributors, small retail. Um, it's you can't shut down all the little kind of endpoints where a product may end up. So it's easier to stop it either at the border or at the manufacturing level. Unfortunately, sometimes, as I mentioned, with some manufacturers, they make the product, they move on to the next one. They're not constantly churning and making product all the time. So once something's made, you might not be able to find out where it originally came from, or once you do find out, they're making something else. They've already moved on. So those are some of the kind of the risks and difficulties that brand owners have to deal with. Um, what are kind of the tools they use otherwise? There's with a lot of online companies, um, online marketplaces, there's a reporting mechanism. They don't want to be legally responsible for the goods that they sell on their marketplaces. So, an IP owner can contact them. There's a process to flag, say, hey, I saw this product on your website being sold. It's counterfeit. Take it down. So that's one tool that brand owners have at their disposal. But again, that takes time and effort. If something's out there, it's not just on one place, it's probably on several places. So they have to do a lot of research and find out where it is and then send a letter to each of those places or send a communication to each of those places to get it shut down. There are some companies that provide a service where they kind of comb the internet for you. So you don't have to kind of hunt every single time you need to find out something is out there. Those are kind of the tools that they use. Now, what motivates them? Because that's the other thing. Sometimes when you have a popular intellectual property, it's all out there, and you have a small team. How do you go after this stuff? How do you decide? So, one of the biggest motivators is their licensees. So, if you have a company who, a manufacturing partner or like a licensee, this is someone who is paying you royalties, paying for the rights to make a product. Um, let's say a company gets a license from Warner Brothers and they're making action figures, and they find out that people are making bootleg action figures undercutting in the marketplace. They don't like that. They're going to raise it to Warner Brothers and say, hey, we spent all this money for a license. We spent all this money getting stuff approved and paying a guarantee and paying royalties for you guys and going through the whole process and making sure everything's legit. But you got these other companies out there making a counterfeit item and they're undercutting us and people are buying it and do something about it. So licensees often put a lot of pressure on the brand owners to handle the counterfeiting. That's usually where a lot of pressure is going to come from. And the teams within those organizations are licensing teams. They care about their revenue too. They don't want to lose royalties from counterfeits. So they're going to raise it within their legal departments to say, hey, everyone's complaining about this. This is going to hurt our numbers. Do something about it. Another big one is big film releases or video game releases or TV shows, animation. Those are usually timed with products. So there's going to be, counterfeiters think the same. They know that, hey, this movie's going to come out later this year. We know it's going to be a big deal. We're going to make bootleg toys timed with that. So there may be more resources during that time period when the movie comes out, where they're going to spend a lot more time both searching the internet, making sure that no one's making counterfeit toys, protecting their licensees, protecting their retail partners. That's where they're going to focus their efforts. They want to kind of do the cleanup at that point. This is kind of just a couple examples of how they, logically prioritize what to go after. Because they have, especially when you're dealing with popular brands, there's a limited amount of resources that you can spend in going after things.
Once again, a huge thank you to Greg for taking the time to record this. You've seen part 1, you've seen part 2, but we're not done yet. Part 3 is going to be coming up next week, next Saturday. See how we've been doing this, releasing these congruent Saturdays. And we'll continue our look behind the scenes at bootlegging. And for Saturday with part 3, and in the meantime, subscribe, ring the bells, and leave a comment. And I always comment back. See you guys next time.